The vast expanse of the Great Plains unfolds eastward, from the towering Rocky Mountains, sweeping across the United States and into Canada. This land has long nurtured a diverse array of Native American tribes, each crafting its own unique traditions and identities. Among them, the Comanche Nation rose as a commanding presence, their name resounding through history as one of the most vigorous and influential peoples of the North American frontier. Their realm sprawled across a territory that now includes north-central Texas, eastern New Mexico, southeastern Colorado, southwestern Kansas, and western Oklahoma. Spanish colonizers dubbed this historic domain the Comanche, a name that endures as a tribute to their profound impact. The Comanche story begins far from the sun-drenched plains of Texas, rooted instead in the windswept highlands of Wyoming. There, they once belonged to the eastern Shoshone, a Numic-speaking people within the UTO, Aztecan language family. The Shoshone roamed as nomadic hunter-gatherers, much like their prehistoric forebears, subsisting on elk, deer, and small game. Without the hallmarks of a militarized society, historical records estimate their population at around 15,000. In the late 17th century, with the Comanche forming a substantial portion, this tranquil way of life teetered on the brink of transformation, poised to shift with the arrival of European intruders. Spanish conquistadors breached the New World around 1500, their caravans laden with steel and innovation. They introduced firearms and, more pivotally, horses to the American continent. Horses first arrived with Hernán Cortés in 1519, later spreading northward from Spanish settlements in Mexico through escape or trade. By the late 1600s, the Comanche embraced this equine revolution with extraordinary mastery. Their skill in horsemanship granted them a decisive advantage over neighboring tribes, such as the Ute and Apache, who had yet to harness this transformative force. Historians record that by 1700, the Comanche had already earned a reputation for equestrian excellence, foreshadowing their ascent to dominance. This newfound strength sparked a monumental change. Around 1700, roughly 10,000 Comanche parted from the Shoshone, embarking on a transformative migration that reshaped their future. They first crossed the Central Plains, a realm of rolling grasslands, before pushing southward into a region stretching from the Arkansas River in modern Kansas to the core of central Texas. This odyssey unfolded over decades, marking not just a shift in location, but a rebirth of identity. The southern plains teemed with buffalo, their herds numbering tens of millions before European settlers arrived, with horses enhancing their hunting prowess. The Comanche tapped into this vast resource, fueling a dramatic population boom. Their numbers swelled as they relied on buffalo meat, hides, and bones, with some mid-18th century estimates suggesting a peak of 20,000, a testament to their command of the plains' ecological riches. With horses as their steadfast allies, the Comanche transformed the hunt into a swift and relentless pursuit, making buffalo their cornerstone of sustenance. This newfound efficiency swelled their numbers, igniting the rise of a formidable war-centered society that soon cast a shadow of dread across the plains. Renowned for their ferocity in battle and unmatched mastery of horsemanship, they carved a legacy as the most terrifying warriors of their realm, their name alone striking fear into the hearts of foes. Their reputation grew darker still with their chilling practice of seizing captives, subjecting them to brutal treatment, and reducing them to mere pawns in a grim trade. These prisoners, stripped of humanity, became slaves or bargaining chips, swapped for prized furs and additional horses. Historical accounts from the 18th century reveal that Comanche raids often netted dozens of captives, with some estimates suggesting hundreds taken annually during their peak. fueling both their economy and their aura of ruthlessness. The Comanche waged a relentless campaign against the Apache, driving them from the windswept plains in a clash of titans that reshaped the southern frontier. By the close of the 18th century, this epic rivalry had swelled into a saga of mythic stature, its echoes reverberating through the annals of history. In 1784, Domingo Cabello y Robles, the Spanish governor of Texas, chronicled a pivotal moment when the Comanche crushed the Apache in a grueling 9-day battle across the rugged expanses of northwestern Texas, a victory that solidified their dominance over the southern plains. Historical records suggest this confrontation, likely near the Red River Valley, involved hundreds of warriors, with the Comanche leveraging their superior horsemanship to outmaneuver their foes. Their strategy hinged on cunning night raids, launched under the silver glow of full moons, when the landscape lay illuminated, granting them clear paths through the darkness. This masterful tactic, honed over generations, birthed the haunting term Comanche Moon, a phrase whispered in dread by settlers and tribes alike. During these nocturnal assaults, the Comanche struck with precision, seizing horses to bolster their herds, capturing hostages for trade or servitude, and plundering weapons to arm their growing ranks. Accounts from the era estimate that a single raid could yield dozens of horses and captives, cementing their reputation as an unstoppable force on the moonlit plains. Unlike the Cheyenne and Arapaho, whose tribes forged unified political identities, the Comanche thrived as a constellation of fiercely independent bands, unbound by a single governing authority, yet woven together by a shared language and vibrant culture. Each group pursued its own ambitions, carving out economic and political paths across the sprawling plains, their autonomy fueling a resilience that defied centralized control. Historical estimates suggest that by the early 19th century, these bands numbered between 12 and 20 distinct units, ranging from a few hundred to over 1,000 members each, all speaking the Numic tongue that tied them to their Shoshone roots. Within this fractured yet dynamic society, harmony and conflict danced in equal measure. At times, these bands clashed over resources or prestige, their warriors locked in fierce skirmishes that tested their mettle. In other moments, they united in purpose, pooling their strength to face external threats or seize opportunities. By the 19th century, their audacity turned toward the burgeoning settlements of Texas, where they raided cattle with breathtaking precision, driving stolen herds across rugged trails to New Mexico for profit. Records from the 1830s indicate that Comanche raiders could rustle hundreds of head of cattle in a single sweep, selling them to traders in Santa Fe, while simultaneously waging war against Mexicans, European settlers, and rival plains tribes like the Kiowa and Osage, masters of the vast domain encompassing Texas, northwestern Oklahoma, and northeastern New Mexico. The Comanche elevated horse taming to an art form, their skill unrivaled across the frontier. This expertise propelled them beyond mere warriors into shrewd economic players, as they began supplying horses to French and American merchants, hungry for reliable mounts. By the 1820s, their trade networks stretched from the Mississippi River to the Rio Grande, with some historians estimating they provided thousands of horses annually, cementing their status as linchpins in the commerce of the American West. Throughout the 19th century, the Comanche honored their departed through a poignant ritual steeped in tradition, wrapping the body in a sturdy blanket and securing it behind a rider on horseback. With solemn purpose, the horsemen ventured across the rugged plains, seeking a secluded resting place, like a sheltered cave, where the deceased could lie undisturbed by the elements or prowling beasts. Historical accounts from the era reveal that these burial sites, often dotted the limestone cliffs of the Llano Estacado, a testament to the Comanches' deep reverence for both their kin and the land they roamed. Upon completing this sacred journey, the rider returned to the encampment, where grieving kin gathered to perform a final act of release, setting ablaze every possession the departed had owned. This blazing farewell, witnessed in Comanche camps as late as the 1860s, carried profound spiritual weight, believed to free the soul for its next passage, while erasing earthly ties. Yet, this ancient practice faced a quiet reckoning, as Christian missionaries, arriving with fervor in the mid-1800s, urged the Comanche to abandon their ways, pressing them to adopt coffins and orderly cemeteries instead. By the 1870s, under mounting pressure from groups like the Quakers, who established missions near Fort Sill, the Comanche began to yield, their timeless customs fading into the shadow of a new faith. Throughout much of the 19th century, the Comanche stood as a formidable force, fiercely guarding their independence, while boldly expanding their dominion across the sunlit plains. Their realm, known as the Comanche, swelled to an awe-inspiring 240,000 square miles by the 1830s, stretching from the Arkansas River to the Rio Grande, a testament to their unmatched resilience amid growing pressures from settlers and rival tribes. This golden era crowned them lords of the southern frontier, their horsemen commanding fear and respect in equal measure. Yet, this radiant prosperity soon darkened under the shadow of merciless epidemics, borne on the winds from distant Eurasia, diseases against which the Comanche possessed no defense. Smallpox and cholera, relentless scourges of the Old World, swept through their camps with devastating fury. Between 1817 and 1849, leaving trails of sorrow across the Llano Estacado and beyond. Historical records pinpoint a catastrophic smallpox outbreak in 1816-1817, followed by cholera's grim toll in the 1830s, slashing their population from a robust 20,000 at the century's dawn to a mere 7,000 by mid-century, a staggering loss that shattered their once mighty numbers and sowed the seeds of their decline. In the turbulent 1860s, the United States government launched an unrelenting campaign to confine the Comanche to a reservation within the Oklahoma Indian Territory, seeking to tame their fierce independence once and for all. With calculated promises, officials offered churches, schools, and annual payments, persuading the Comanche to relinquish a staggering 62,000 square miles of their ancestral lands, an expanse roughly the size of modern Georgia. In return, they vowed to halt the relentless buffalo hunters, whose rifles had already slashed the once vast herds from millions to mere thousands, a pledge made contingent upon the Comanche joining the Apache, Kiowa, Cheyenne, and Arapaho in abandoning their domains. Yet trust crumbled as the slaughter continued unabated, sparking fury among the Comanche, who retaliated with a daring assault on a hunting outpost in Texas. On June 27, 1874, this explosive clash, etched into history as the Second Battle of Adobe Walls, unfolded near the Canadian River, where some 300 Comanche warriors, led by the defiant Quanah Parker, faced a handful of sharpshooters armed with long-range buffalo guns. The attack faltered, leaving the Comanche reeling from a crushing defeat, their numbers diminished and spirits broken. Seizing the moment, the United States Army unleashed the Red River War. Later that year, a brutal campaign that swept through the Texas Panhandle, crushing the last pockets of resistance and dragging the survivors to the reservation's edge. Within a decade, by 1883, the buffalo teetered on the verge of extinction, their numbers plummeting to fewer than 300 across the plains, severing the lifeline of the Comanche's hunting culture forever. On May 17, 1875, the final band of free Comanche, weary and outnumbered, laid down their arms at Fort Sill in Oklahoma, their surrender marking the end of an era. This poignant moment, witnessed by soldiers and settlers alike, closed the chapter on a people who had once ruled the southern plains. With unrivaled prowess, their way of life extinguished alongside the herds they revered. The 1890 census laid bare a stark reality. Counting just 1598, Comanche souls clinging to existence on the Fort Sill Reservation, a mere shadow of their once thriving nation. This sobering tally, recorded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, after decades of war and disease, underscored the toll of confinement following their surrender in 1875. Yet, even as their numbers dwindled, the Comanche spirit endured, finding new horizons during World War II when scores of young men and women departed the sun-baked tribal lands of Oklahoma, drawn to the bustling cities of California, lured by wartime jobs in shipyards and factories, particularly in Los Angeles and San Diego. They joined a broader migration that saw over 44,000 Native Americans leave reservations between 1941 and 1945, seeking economic footholds in an industrial age. Today, the Comanche people stand divided yet unbroken, with roughly half of their population, estimated at around 17,000 by the Comanche Nation enrollment in 2020, rooted in Oklahoma, near their ancestral heartland. The other half fans out across Texas, California, and New Mexico, their lives woven into the fabric of urban centers and rural plains alike, a diaspora born of necessity and resilience. Amid this scattering, a powerful tradition binds them together, as Comanches from every corner of the United States converge in annual gatherings, such as the Comanche Nation Fair held each September in Lawton, Oklahoma. These vibrant celebrations, pulsing with dance, song, and storytelling, reaffirm their unyielding heritage, ensuring that a culture forged on the wild plains endures in the modern era.